meeting of the Montana Geospatial Information Advisory Council to order. This is our September 12th business meeting. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Let's go ahead and start with introductions. My name is Jenny Stapp. I'm the Montana State Librarian, and I'm chair of the Montana Geospatial Advisory Council. And I'm just going to call on the members to have them introduce themselves. Maureen, would you like to go first?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Maureen Sealander. I'm the Custer County GIS manager, and I represent county and municipal government on the board.
Thanks, Maureen. Adam?
Yes, Adam Carpenter, Chief Data Officer for the state. Good to be here.
Thanks for joining us. Alan?
Yeah, hi, good morning, everyone. Alan Armstrong, the GIS Program Manager for the Bureau of Land Management in Billings, Montana. I am the federal government representative on the council.
Great. Brian? Brian, do you have access to a mic? Let's go on to Eric.
Yes, good morning. My name is Eric Spangenberg. I am the GIS coordinator for the city of Helena and Lewis and Clark County. My role on council is a representative of the Montana GIS Professionals Group.
Great. Karen Coleman.
Good morning, Karen Coleman. I'm a GIS analyst with the Montana Department of Natural Resources and Conservation, and I'm serving as a state representative to the council.
Let me ask again if Brian can hear us. Erin, will you introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Erin Fashaway. I am the state GIS coordinator and I staff the council.
We're also joined by Genevieve Lighthizer, who's taking minutes for us and supporting the council, and then a number of other state library staff and guests. So welcome and thank you for joining us. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda? I do have one note that I wanted to make. We did hear from the Lieutenant Governor earlier this week about council appointments. There are a number of seats that are up for reappointment this year, and we did hear that all of the current council members whose terms are up this year are being recommended for reappointment. And my understanding is that those recommendations were going to the governor earlier this week. So I anticipate that those of you whose terms are up should be receiving notice any day with an ask to continue your service on the council. Any questions about appointments? And if you can't remember if you're one of the ones whose term is up, we have your terms listed on our members page of the website. Let's move on to the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes from our July 11th and August 30th meetings? Were there any corrections noted for those meeting minutes? Is there a motion to approve both the minutes from July 11th and August 30th?
I would move that we approve the meeting minutes of July 11th, 2024 and August 30th, 2024.
Thanks, Eric. Is there a second?
I second.
I'll second.
Like, Alan beat you to the punch, Karen.
Beat you.
That's okay.
Usually Eric always beats me.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you. Go ahead and move on to our discussion items, starting with a strategic planning update. Aaron.
All right, I am getting my computer ready to share. You have to forgive me, I've got 3 screens and it's always a new adventure. So I guess the best news is we're making progress. Let me pull up presentation. All right. So as a reminder, we started this process roughly 2.5 years ago, and we went through the process with our geospatial stakeholders of creating the strategic plan, and then after that, with the hired consultant, AppGeo, who's now been recently purchased by Sanborn. So they're a subgroup, AppGeo Sanborn, a subgroup of Sanborn. So their, I think, official name is AppGeo Sanborn. And as a part of that process of completing the strategic goals and getting them in into our work plans, we created business plans for 4 out of the 5. And so let me just, I am now, Genevieve, I think you've got me the ability to.
Yes, your co-host, you can share.
Yeah, okay, cool. All right, I think this is going to give you the correct. Okay, do you see a funky screen or do you see a nice looking screen?
We see your strategic communications presentation.
Okay, perfect, but it's not the one with the weird notes and stuff. Okay, all right. So we're making progress. This was the, if you remember, this was part of the, basically our little rubric for reporting our progress that was given to us by AppGeo. So I wanted to make sure that you saw it, and this is a very high level. We're also working on other ways of putting this information out, but this is the whole plan. I have not broken this out completely by completion year or the next 3 years, which is going to be what we're going to be doing as a part of the geospatial information planning process. And so unfortunately, with our revenue shortfalls this past year, we were unable to complete a business plan for the first strategic goal. And just a little bit of a background. I know this is going to be duplicative information for some of you, but even though these goals are aligned 1 through 5, we actually decided to reprioritize, and we started with improved communication with geospatial stakeholders first. So, and the improved GIS coordination within the library actually was at the bottom. So you can see, where we are making progress here. What I wanted to focus on is, so for each of these, you'll see that we have a business plan listed as the first objective or recommendation. Like I said, all of those have been completed. All of those are out on the website and for you to review. Most of you have seen them. And another reminder is that Lee Macholtz was our council rep in the development of, she was on the team for the development of these business plans and the strategic plan itself. So she was able to bring the local government perspective, and then there's the council perspective during this process. What I really want to focus on today is improving communication with geospatial stakeholders and some of the work that we've been able to achieve to date, because it's a lot. And so that being said, the first goal under improving communication was defining incoming pathways for support requests. And basically what we have done is we're working to move all of our incoming support requests and public inquiries into ServiceNow. This is a big ship to turn. And so we've been working under ServiceNow for about a year now. And I think we've been very successful along the way. So we've been able to start concentrating all of our support in ServiceNow. We have to basically retrain our users and the folks that we serve to put their requests through ServiceNow. So that has been interesting. And we're working with the state ServiceNow team to give back our feedback and to let them know how it's going. But so far, so good. It's just, getting them into the right door, I think right now is one of our biggest challenges. But I'll explain why I think using ServiceNow has been so fantastic in some of the upcoming slides. So we're also able to review our requests and basically make more nimble changes based on what's going on. Whether that's a change to a website, or perhaps maybe we need to put out an instructional video, or just everybody concentrate on a certain training so that we're giving the correct answer and consistent answers across the board. We've been able to train our support team. We've gone through right now, I think about 2 iterations of what support's going to look like, and we're working on what that could look like in the future. It was recommended that we try to focus all of our time into ServiceNow and try to get off the phone, and because we were spending a lot of time on the phone. I don't think we'll ever be able to get off the phone, but if we are able to successfully, which I do believe we will be, put some of these recommendations into place, it will, I think, limit our time on the phone. So what does that mean? So we've created a dashboard that basically is monitoring what we're doing and the types of requests and information that's coming in. And then, of course, who's answering the most amount of calls and what that looks like. And on the right, you can see that cases were resolved by, and don't let that, I don't want anyone to get an impression that people aren't doing work. Some people are on certain cases because they are funded a certain way. For example, Caroline works mostly on the geo-enabled elections project, so she's going to have a few less. And then some of our folks are starting cases and then passing it off to other folks. And so just to give you a little insight there, but also, just the amount of requests that were coming in and are being logged into ServiceNow. I would say that we're doing our best to put everything into ServiceNow, but we still are frequently contacted via phone and via email by our longtime data partners and friends, and sometimes they don't always make it their way into ServiceNow, but we're working on making sure that they do, so we have a better understanding of what's going on and we can make better data-driven decisions. So this is how we've currently, we went through this process with ITSD on how we're classifying and categorizing all of the incoming requests and tech support. And so this is how we're currently classifying those. And this is by the last quarter, I do believe, yes. And we're even learning, okay, we've done this for a year. Do these classifications and these categories make sense to us? And so we are working on that. And we were able to categorize and then subcategorize by just general GIS coordination, data web and resources, expertise, and then general guidance. And then here's some of the subcategories that might I think might be of interest to you. It's how we basically take and then classify things out even further. So is there data available? Is there a data correction? Some folks need help downloading data. So 43 responses in the past quarter for downloading data. So what does that mean? So maybe, that's something we can concentrate our time on. If it is a continued issue over and over again, then perhaps we need to present a better way of downloading information or discovery of information. And so I think you get the point of how we are subcategorizing things to then better understand how we are meeting the needs or not meeting the needs of our patrons. And so this is everything kind of taking it down even further and basically slicing it. It's called a slicer. That's a ServiceNow term. But what that looks like for the apps. So I think it's pretty evident that you would see that the cadastral application gets a lot of our attention. And most of our calls when it comes to app categories is going to answering questions about the cadastral. And then second in this category or subcategory is LiDAR. And we're getting a lot of requests for LiDAR, and then just a lot of questions about cadastral application. So if we look at data, these are the most questions we get. And when we break down that data category even further, so just general data questions, sometimes folks are looking for a map, or sometimes folks are looking for some sort of different report or publication. GeoInfo cases by MSDI. So right now, this is how we're classifying whether folks need further information about our MSDI. Right now, elevation is taking the lead over cadastral, probably because people have to actually go through a process to get elevation information. They can't just immediately download it from the website, so they have to go through a story, not a story map, a survey 123 to actually request that information. So you're going to see an increase in requests here. And this is non-MSDI. So these are the things that aren't very specifically tied to one of our active themes that we're managing at the MSL. And so natural resources is kind of high on the list amongst some of these other things that we've broken out. Okay, case duration. So we are working on trying to improve the way we put our information out there, and therefore reduce the amount of time that we're working on some of these cases. However, this is how we're going to be tracking a lot of the special requests that come in. And so we're going to see durations on certain things, but typically we spend less than 15 minutes on a case. And so I think that's good to see. And the more we're able to automate and put our information out there in a more organized way, I think we'll start to see, hopefully, a little less time spent on cases. And so case channel, this is how things are coming into the MSL. So we've about 47% of our cases are coming in through the web. That is a good sign. So that means that they're starting to utilize ServiceNow, but we still have over half of the cases coming in via email and phone, and we are working to focus people to the entry point of ServiceNow. And industry, this is interesting. So if you want to know who's making the most amount of requests in this past iteration, you can see that we've got a big chunk coming from just the geospatial and technology industry, construction, survey and engineering, and then environmental and natural resources. I think that's pretty evident. No big surprise there. Don't really see any too big surprises. Maybe business could be a little bigger, but again, we're learning how to classify and how to hone in our the way that we're categorizing our information coming in. And then case sector, I think this makes a lot of sense as well. We've got a majority of our cases coming in from the public sector, state government, and then private government. Or it's not private government, excuse me, private sector. Okay, so
Let's
just
pause there and ask if
Okay.
there's any questions. Did anything in the data jump out to anyone? Any comments?
So I have a question. Where would the services for 911?
Ah, that's a great question. And we are not, let's see, I don't think we're breaking it out yet by specific industry. So we are in the process of porting over some of our very specific workflows. And right now we are not tackling, or we have not put the work that Bob Cochran is doing into ServiceNow yet. And we will be seeing that in the future, but I don't think I think we would see those under, yeah, those are very specific in nature. Michael, do you want to talk about that a little more? We did discuss it at our last staff meeting that Bob would be Bob's group, and then the Next Gen 911 group would be the next ones we would port over because we have a very specific workflow that they're doing. Michael, if you want to chat a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you basically covered it. We do have a category for the Next Gen 911 effort and a group set up that would funnel cases that come in for that to Bob and I. As Aaron mentioned, excuse me, we just haven't made that part of the workflow yet, but like she also mentioned, we talked about it just the last week or so, and plan to do so in the near future to kind of get that better represented through ServiceNow. So
Bob will work similarly to geo-enabled elections. We do have some general categories where some of that work will be, you'll see it kind of come up through just the general, this is general on call. So this is when people are kind of calling out of the blue. We've shifted, so we're keeping track of LiDAR requests because it's a very specific process to make that request. It's not just, it doesn't just fall under the general, hey, we have a question for you, because we have a tool built for it. And so we have the tool that we've been utilizing for a long time with Next Gen 911. And Michael and Bob will come up with a workflow on how we're going to be asking our partners to start putting in requests, or whether he's going to put them in when he's completed with them into ServiceNow. So you'll really start to see a larger picture when some of these other programs come on board. The election administrators are already using Okta and have Okta accounts. It's kind of like one of the things that we see a little bit of hesitation on is creating this Okta account. And I think we see it more for just the general public, not being we see a disinterest in creating this Okta account so they can submit a ticket. So what we're doing is we'll create a ticket on behalf of someone, and they can see some of the progress. They just don't get the full experience of ServiceNow. And we will, like I said, we'll take and put that information in there so they are, the work that we're doing is represented. Back to the election administrators and the clerks and recorders, they're already required to use Okta, and so they'll be the next group that we will put into this workflow after Next Gen. Any other questions?
Yeah, I was curious if the Natural Heritage Program is included in this. Are they using ServiceNow?
That is a great question. So they are working on how they will be tracking their cases, and no, they are not in ServiceNow yet. So it was, I know you're with state government, Karen, and I don't know how it was rolled out for the DNRC, but it's being rolled out across, as far as I understand, all agencies. We started with, I think, talking books here, and then went to GIS because it aligned so beautifully with our business plan and the work we were attempting to do. And then we are rolling it out for different sections of the library, but they are in the process of exploring it and seeing how it will fit into their workflows. They do have a separate way of tracking the information, just as we did. It was a good old fashioned, we used to keep track of it in a good old fashioned spreadsheet, and we had an internal tool that they used to keep track of their cases. And so they're working on that. Jenny, did you want to say any more about that?
We're as Aaron said, the state is rolling out ServiceNow in phases, and the Heritage Program is our agency's next phase of implementation for ServiceNow.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to add that I love these graphics, and I know that this is something that could be presented to like legislators for funding purposes, and like Next Gen 911 would be a huge one. And like you said, the elections would be a huge one, because that's a big help to local governments like us. And, you know, that gets funded is very important.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
We are
Yeah,
eager to roll it out. Sorry, Jenny, go ahead.
I was just going to say, to be able to have these insights into this kind of data and how we're responding to the inquiries we get it's really remarkable. And I think it's going to really help us improve our planning.
The one I attended a NISJIC conference in, I do believe it was 2017, and saw something similar that the state of Massachusetts rolled out, and I was so impressed with it. And you know, it's part of the governor's vision, and you know, it's basically one-stop shopping, where you come in and you don't have to, as an someone external to state government, you don't have to try to understand state government in order to get what you need. And so I've, you know, worked with ITSD to try to understand what it would take for us to have, you know, one request form for all geospatial data requests that come in to the state, or general geospatial requests that then can get sorted to the proper agency. And so I know it's a big lift, but we have the technology, we're putting it into place, and we're getting our citizens used to using this tool, which I think has been very successful to date. Like I said, it's a big ship, and so we're turning in the right direction. Michael, you came off, or you came on camera. Did you have?
Yeah, I was just going to point out that totally agree with Maureen's comment about tracking and stuff, and just wanted to make the point, we actually are tracking that on the Next Gen side, just not in ServiceNow. Obviously, ServiceNow is where it should be done, so it integrates with everything else. And like we said, that's the plan, but long way of saying the last 3 years or so, work is not like lost or unrecorded. So we do have some stats for that we actually just put in our mandated legislative interim committee report that's available online. So,
Michael, do you want to drop that into the chat, please, so they can see it?
I'll find that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I'm just so glad that that's being tracked, because we at the local level here know how much work you guys do. I just want the legislators to also know that.
Great.
Thanks, Maureen. Okay, so GIS web content restructuring. So this is another huge task that we're working on. And so we took a few steps forward and a few steps back, but I think we are on the right track. And oh, I should have said that some of the team members working on ServiceNow, the implementation within GeoInfo has been Matt Trevish, and I'm highly grateful for all the work that he's done, along with Kenny Kettner. He's one of the leads that is helping implement ServiceNow across the state library. And then Megan Burns is helping implement these major web changes along with Matt, because some of the work is so closely tied together with governance and some of these other things that we are working on. And so we present a lot of different types of geospatial information to the public. And one of the things that was identified as a risk to the state library was it was difficult to find because of the mass quantities of information that we have available. So we've been working on implementing Hub and ArcGIS Hub. For those of you that don't know what the technology is, it's basically something that the state has been using for a while now. It integrates with ArcGIS Online and just the suite of Esri products. And so it's just a way to present that information. So we have been working on the functional requirements and design, what is going to actually live in what we call the hub versus what's going to be on our website, and then just having a consistent way and to present our information across the board. And we are also working, so the data list is currently one of the ways that we present our the ways to download or request our geospatial information. We will be migrating that to the hub. And so we're working with Esri through their Enterprise Advantage program to better understand the best way to implement some of these products that we already have access to and we've already been using across the board. And so we've been making good progress on that. We don't have a ton of really pretty slides coming. Well, they're colorful, but we don't have pretty pie charts, but just kind of like, so you can see the work that we've been doing. We're in the process of going through a UI UX activity with Esri to better design the ways to serve out our information. We have mass quantities of GIS data, and basically, using their expertise on how that should be organized and published. Everything we're trying to do is based on the COTS tools that we already have access to, so that we didn't need to make additional purchases. And just basically enhancing everything that we have access to or have already started utilizing. The data migration activity, we're actually getting some help from Esri to help migrate all of our data sets to ArcGIS Online. So that means we're going to be putting them, making sure that the metadata is up to date and into a new into ArcGIS Online. So it is a new format. And so that's a pretty heavy lift. And Esri is helping us create workflows to make that migration. And we'll probably be reporting that on the amount of records that have been converted. And then once we're completed within MSL, we'll start working with other agencies to see how we can start integrating their information as we serve as the clearinghouse for the state of Montana for geospatial data. So a lot of agencies have already implemented Hub and have their information published in ArcGIS Online. So it's just a matter of sharing and presenting that in a clear format. So again, you can have that one-stop shopping for geospatial data for Montana. So again, if you have looked at our website, you will see that once you start kind of digging in and diving down and doing, the 5 mouse clicks deep, you'll see that we just offer a ton of information. So we are creating new front pages and again, pulling the information off of the website into Hub. So we don't have to have a, 1 page per theme or 1 page per data set discovery. It creates basically a non-maintainable website. And so the COTS tools have gotten really great, and we are starting to implement that now and using the best practice of not having more than to discover something in more than 3 mouse clicks. So this is just represents a lot of the activities that we have gotten done to date. Again, we are using ArcGIS Online. We've created some governance workflows in ArcGIS Online. We have a governance document internally that we are utilizing. We will be publishing that for others to utilize, but we had to kind of strip a lot out in order to make it more digestible for us to put into place. And then there was some stuff in there that shouldn't be published for others to see just for security purposes. So I think we have shared that with a few agencies, and if other folks are interested, basically, so they don't have to go through the same efforts that we've already done. A lot of these standards and best practices are pretty much the same across the board. Agencies might implement things just a little differently, which is perfectly acceptable, but we'll have those documents for folks to utilize. And basically, we've gone through and we've started to implement these standards and work through the process of getting things ready for a full conversion. And
any questions on the implementation of Hub and data access?
I think this is a great exercise you guys are going through. Kudos to you. I was just typing into the chat while you're talking. Those stripped down standards, are those going to be publicly available? You share those with others? Okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah,
and I could see a lot of us maybe implementing portions or just using those as a roadmap for our growth.
Absolutely. And when it is ready for publishing, we could even try, if the council wants to prioritize it, have it prioritized as a standard, as a state standard that's endorsed, or we could call it best practice, whatever we're comfortable with, for some council future activities. So
yeah. When it's ready, let me know. I'd love to take a look at it.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. So this is like I said, it's a pretty big effort behind the scenes. And so we are working with Esri to create scripts to basically take and pull the data list items from XML to Excel, and then to be able to be cleaned. And then and we're basically looking at all the items, seeing what we have, what meets the current standard, doing the analysis of, do we still want to put this information out there? Do we need to put it out there in a different way? You know, to make sure that it's usable in ArcGIS Online. What's the parent-child relationship, so on and so forth. What do we do for archive data? And so we've been working through that, and you could see a proof of concept, what that looks like. I mean, it's a big effort, because not only do we have to pull from one old format and implement a new format, but we have to understand how this is going to work within ArcGIS Online, the user structures, category types, and all that that I know a lot of you have gone through. So we're basically kind of reclassifying and trying to understand what's going to work best for us with the massive amounts of information that we're putting out. So you can see that, this is one of the items that we've taken and we have converted and put into ArcGIS Online. And so we've taken the data that, so some of you that are very familiar with the work of creating metadata for a geospatial item, it's basically taking that, putting into ArcGIS Online. So this is what it looks like, taking that item out of the data list, and then making sure the information is up to date and the records basically align a one-to-one to what's allowed in ArcGIS Online. So because this is being done in ArcGIS Online, then when we started this whole process, it was kind of, like I said, one step forward, a couple steps back, in that we had to make sure that, and it was based on Esri's suggestion, and we totally agreed with them, that we had some sort of governance models in place. And so we went through a big effort last year to create these governance documents for ArcGIS Online, since we were going to be concentrating all of our information into ArcGIS Online and utilizing the hub. And so, and then these, I keep saying ArcGIS Online, but these also, I should say WebGIS, because this aligns also with Portal. So anything that's being managed in Portal, we're also taking into account through these documents. And so to date, we have a team that had created the document. We had worked through the process with Esri to create this document. We decided that it needed a little bit of restructuring. It was more of a, this is how you do it with Esri technology, and we wanted to put it into a more of like, this is how we're going to use it and implement it approach in MSL, not just a how-to. And so we've worked on that, and we're in the process of cleaning that up. And then finally, we are working on, so this was a kind of a slow going thing, because basically some of the limitations that we had with state governments use of calendar platforms. So kind of some things switched in regards to technology in between our when we were doing the implementation, and we were going to attempt to use a Google platform, and then some of the newer best practices that came out from ITSD, we basically opened the ability to use an Outlook calendar. And so basically we are working, it's in progress. I wanted to show you something, but we're just not quite ready yet. But we are going to take and utilize an Outlook calendar and put our information out there for our event information. So whether it's a working group, a council meeting, the MAGIP events, any other kind of partnership events. We have an upcoming Heritage Program meeting that we're going to be working on with Heritage, their partner meeting. And then, oh gosh, some of the other things, if we're attending MACO or League of Cities and Towns, we will be putting this out there in a calendar. And the goal is to have a like what's up coming up in the next week, kind of as a right navigation sidebar. And then from that part, we could even categorize and put that into different sections, categories based on theme, perhaps like MSDI or general GIS coordination. We're going to try to just roll it out and keep it very simple to begin with, but then we have the ability to tailor it to each theme. And then from that calendar, you'll be able to open it up and just see a greater month view or list view, depending on what you like. So that was what we thought would be a pretty easy win, creating a calendar, because we all have the ability to create calendars in Outlook. But we had some web limitations based on what was allowed at the time. So very excited to be able to, that our state IT was able to approve and make sure that that was ready for us to utilize in regards to being secure. And so now we're going to use Outlook, and we don't have to manage a separate technology or a separate calendar and a separate technology outside of what we're all used to using currently, which is Outlook. So we've had a lot of progress, and I will just end this going back to that first slide. So, and saying where we're at. Let me just, here we go. Oh, sorry, I'm click happy. So we've got a lot being done in addition to all the other activities that we have to do. Whether that's general MSDI maintenance or some of the outreach activities and training activities that we're doing, and so this is our status. And I guess I want your feedback on, is it too much information? Do you like the amount of information we've given? We hadn't really done a deep dive into ServiceNow, and kind of the data-driven insights that we were able to pull from the work that we're doing. And so I just wanted to get your feedback and see if you are in favor of, us diving a little deeper when we have time and when we have, I guess, new information to provide you when it comes to our successes in achieving some of these strategic goals.
Any additional questions, comments, feedback from the council?
I just think there's been a lot done. Kudos to you guys and staff. I mean, what you've set out to do and what was on your based on that plan that you guys put together, you've done quite a bit of work. So kudos. I appreciate it. Nice to see. And I look forward to learning from your steps.
I look forward to sharing.
Yeah.
And some of the, I will say that one of the benefits of going through the business plan development with AppGeo is, well, number one, that they were experienced in creating these documents and plans and execution across state governments. But some of the things were already started as a part of actually creating that business plan. So for the business plan of improved geospatial data value, we had gone through a couple iterations for structures and elevation. And so we created some steps. We want to do it for example, 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3. I put those as in progress because we've already done those for 2 out of the 15 MSDI data layers. And we plan on getting folks together in November, the MSDI theme leads, to teach them on how to go through this, and then bringing what we've discovered and that information, data quality, what's expected, defining measures of the geospatial data value. We'll bring that to the council, so then we can further inform the geospatial information plan and the work that we do. But I guess the biggest step was creating how we were going to measure those themes, and then running it through 2 themes, one land for structures, and then one for elevation for water. It's not necessarily water, but that's how we categorize it. But Troy and Michael both have done one, so then they can help guide the rest of the theme leads through the process of creating those documents.
I'll agree with Eric. Very good work on this. Good statistics. Don't forget to keep your statistics, especially you have a tendency to knock those completed ones off the plate and just forget about them. But archive that so you have a record of things, because you're not going to want to keep completed things on there all the time. You're going to take them off, but save them someplace in an archive so that so that you don't lose all that history of things that have been done. And I like the green, yellow, red. That's a federal system we use a lot for status and on big projects, and it's easy to read. I think everyone understands it nicely.
Thanks, Alan. And I always remember the day when we approved the plan, or right around that time with the council, and you said, "Don't shelve this."
I was thinking the exact same thing, Erin.
And so I always think of you, Alan. You're in my head.
Maybe I'm just one of those people that never throw anything away. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you basically said, "Don't let this be a plan that this sits on a shelf. Put it to use." And
yeah.
And so we have.
Looks good.
Thanks for the feedback and comments. Any other questions? Okay. Next item on the agenda is an update on the Geospatial Information Plan outline. I know many of you had a chance to meet at the end of August to kind of kick off the regular check-ins on that process.
All right, I will share my screen. Again. Okay, so this is the, go to the top. This is the outline and what was basically decided as a part of our working meeting that we had at the end of August. And because we had this meeting planned, we decided to cancel last week's meeting and just use this time as time to discuss and further expand or hone in on what we are trying to get completed when it comes to the outline. And then we'll be working internally to start filling in some of this information. And so we wanted to start with an executive summary. I can just dive in to what this currently looks like. We wanted to outline the impact of geospatial data collection. So these would be stories or case studies that would define the impact of the MSDI. And so we have a couple in mind, and so we will start gathering some of those stories, and then we'll dive into the prioritization needs to basically collect, maintain, and disseminate the geospatial information. We thought that we wanted to define what the work that we were doing and how it was either being funded by the MGIA or not being funded by the MGIA, and then also highlight our fiscal limitations. And so we had discussed kind of outlining and documenting the gap. We had talked about very specific theme development, what that looks like, what it takes just to keep the lights on versus how we want to take and further develop that theme. Some of the work that we're outlining in the strategic goal of improving maintenance and dissemination of geospatial information, essentially the MSDI, will go through the practice of basically defining those similarly to what we did with the structures and elevation theme. And I guess we'll get together internally to understand like what is a good timeline for seeing that done. We know it's going to take a while. If we start the progress in November, can we be done this fiscal year? Do we need a full year to complete that? But then that can further help inform future geospatial information plans or a modification of this current geospatial information plan. So again, giving us more information to further define the work that needs to be done. And then we're going to structure the document and put the grant program under the prioritized needs to collect, maintain, and disseminate geospatial information, because when we're able to put the grant program back into place, basically we'll prioritize that based on what we are identifying needs to be prioritized for the MSDI or non-MSDI, depending on how this lines out. Some of the current themes we've identified are the Next Gen County Data Development, PLSS projects, GeoNaval election projects, and 3D HP projects. This is not a one and done. Obviously, we're in development, so we can further expand those priorities for the grant program, and we'll probably be relying heavily on our partners and past grant recipients to understand where their needs lie. So we'll work with those folks who represent those sectors in the council to make sure that they're reaching out to their folks. And then I'm going to be, heading to a few conferences to be able to speak on their priorities to understand and bring that back to the council. And then just basic priorities for our geospatial coordination. We decided that for now that we wanted to put the governance under geospatial coordination, all the policy standards and best practice development that we'll be doing. We'll want to have the council prioritize with MSL's feedback on what policies we think would be relevant and standards to be passed first. What we want to work on, because it's going to take time out of our theme leads and other MSL staff to officially adopt these policies and best practices. So we want to make sure we have a realistic timeline. Any kind of consultation that we're working on. So, whether we're going into good example, Fergus County, helping them with election work, just general GIS coordination, getting them help on grant writing. Some of the other things we've worked on is next gen 911 work, helping them manage their AGOL account, or giving them best practices when they lost some staff. So those are some of the types of consultations that we've done. Training examples, we're going to the planners conference to teach a class on how to utilize our services through some of the COTS tools that most local governments and planners have access to, and then this general outreach. And then if we want to be very specific in groups, for example, tribal, it's been defined as being a priority, what that looks like, and how we are going to enhance or prioritize some of the geospatial coordination, specifically with tribes. All right, this did not get taken out last time. Remove that. And then as in regards to the budget and funding, I just quickly threw this in here. I don't know exactly how it will end up. We have some online, we have some dashboards online that currently describe our current fiscal year's budget. But if we're going to be projecting for 3 years, what does that look like? How are we going to do that? We've discussed what we are identifying a gap, what that looks like, and of course the budget, and then versus the appropriation. So budget's more or less the revenue that we're pulling in and what we're able to spend versus what we've been appropriated. And so I just threw this together. I don't know if it's going to stick, but I thought we need to put something out there to begin with in regards to how we wanted to define the budget for this geospatial information plan, especially given that it falls over multiple bienniums. So I know that's going to be difficult. Clearly, some of this is just in, I guess, a goal to try to hit in regards to what we're trying to accomplish when it comes to the budget. And we'll do realistic what actually falls out after the legislative session, and then just after monitoring what we're able to bring in with revenue. So any thoughts there?
Just a question. So why wouldn't you put 2025 to 2027? I mean, instead of 26 to 28.
Oh, well, currently we're kind of still operating under the geospatial information plan from last year. We can put 25 in there for sure. I can definitely do that. I just was trying to align it to the next biennium, and not sure when this actual plan will be put into place. So that's a great feedback. I can definitely, yeah.
Especially because we have our FY25 numbers, we can
Yep.
add that. And like Erin said, we don't know that this actual method of communicating financial information is what we'll end up with in the plan, but giving us a way to evaluate how useful this information by using the current fiscal year seems right. Maureen, thanks.
Thank you.
Do you feel like we're capturing your initial thoughts about how at least the outline for the plan should shape up?
Yeah, it looks like, some of those things that we talked about the last one, you've got those organized in place where we had that discussion about that stuff. So I think it's moving forward properly. So I love when we have our next. I'm looking forward to seeing some of the stories that you guys have come up with on your in that earlier section about wins, things like that. So.
And if the council has any that you want to identify, coming from your own organization, we are happy to take those, and we would like to develop those with you. So please let me know. But I think what you'll see is we're trying to focus on some of the similar priorities for the initiatives that we've already documented in the grant program. But
Yeah, I don't, my grant program, we've had really good successful grants over the years through, here with the county. But I know you have other ones from other counties as well that met all those needs. I just, on a bigger picture, I just think about the, because we do a lot of stuff with data harvesting and things like that, from an education side point. I just think that the state of Montana's geospatial library that's out there is it's just head over heels one of the best, when you start looking for data to share and data that's available and accessible and searchable. So yeah, this plan works on, maybe that's something we work into this plan, is about how this data is being harvested and mined and used by organizations, not just for their work, but I'd love to hear how students at UM or MSU, at Carroll, I highlight this. One of the first lessons is showing them how to make a connection to the base map service center's REST endpoint. So yeah.
okay, I have a.
Yep. Great.
Okay. And cadastral is always a great one. LiDAR is always we've done a lot with LiDAR. We've done a lot with a little. So.
Well, I'm wondering too, since we just had a 10-year redistricting, and there's got to be stories out there about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Elections is probably in that same vein.
Disaster response.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, even if the stories don't make it, we certainly should document those. And there are other ways we can publish that information, just in stories and articles and things like that. We actually been the MSL, that's going to kind of steal the thunder from the GIS coordinators report, but we've been doing some, interviews based on some of the successes of implementing workflows and software and so on. So we did have quite a bit of time slated for this discussion. So if you want to dive deeper, talk about any of the other sections, we do have some time today. So wanted to make that make you all aware of that. If not, we can continue to do this work internally and bring you how we're expanding and starting to develop some of these sections to the next meeting, which I do believe is next week.
It's next Friday. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like I need to catch up on the docs instead of using everyone's time for me to catch up. So let me catch up, and then I may have comment next week.
Sounds
Cool.
good, Adam. Appreciate
Adam.
that.
And if you, I am headed to Mako on Monday through Wednesday, but if you have any questions in the meantime and you want to jump on a phone call, just let me know. We can.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Mhm. Okay. Anyone else? Me?
Okay, well, we'll continue to the discussion next week.
Cool.
Let's move on to our standing reports. And Mike, thanks for being with us on behalf of Gail.
Yeah, always. Not a problem. I appreciate the invite. Always love to be here to let you guys know what we're doing over in Megap. I'm not sure when our last report was, so I'll just kind of go over a few things. One big thing that we just had done is our website has been updated. If anybody's ever have you gone out there recently, it has been totally redone. It's slimmed down, and we feel like it's pretty good. We're certainly looking for any feedback at any time. Feel free to provide that. In addition to that, we have also updated the request for assistance, the form and mechanism and everything for that. So that's also been updated to make things a little bit easier for everybody. Megap just had the last couple of days, we had our strategic planning session. So we were in Ennis for the last 2 days, doing a lot of talking, and we had a few things that come up, and we were able to iron out. We did fill our vice president position.
Oh.
So we're very happy about that. Jackson Rose from MSU has been willing to take on that role, and we were able to just appoint him to that position. When the election comes up in April, he will have to rerun for the remaining past president, which he is willing to do. So we're very happy about that. So we're going to have we have a full team again. This next election coming up in April is going to be a big election. We're going to have another vice president, past president, and then 4 other positions that are going to become available. So we're going to be actively hunting for people to join up. Also in the strategic planning, we worked on the work plan and our accomplishments for the year, which we will be getting out hopefully by the next meeting, October. Finish that up and get that done. We've approved our budget and stuff. We have approved where our 2026 conference is going to be. The 2025 conference will be in Helena this year or next year in April, and our 2026 conference will be up by Whitefish, Kalispell area in the northeast there, or northwest corner.
Grouse Mountain.
So yeah,
Is that the Grouse Mountain Resort?
the grass
Grass
something.
Mountain?
Yeah, Grass Mountain Lodge or something like that. That's where it's at.
Yeah.
Great.
We also were talking about redoing, well, not redoing, but we were very happy with the member survey, but we wanted more from it, and we wanted to dive deeper into it. So we're going to be doing a new member survey, maybe getting it out a little earlier than what we did last year. Also going to be working on a new salary survey. We were talking about maybe partnering with Esri, maybe Urissa on maybe doing a virtual workshop in the fall. So that was something that we were thinking about. The main point of the whole work session was improving our communication and outreach to everybody, tribal, students, trying to find better ways of reaching out to them, trying to get them involved, trying to get them to our conference. So that was a big, that was a big discussion point and stuff. And I will be going to MAP. We've got a partnership with MAP now, Montana Association of Planners. So we have a little, and it's the kind of same thing that we have with Marls, but we plan on expanding that partnership to make it a little easier for both organizations, to where maybe we won't need to go to actually be there physically for booths and stuff, because that's a hard thing to pay for people, to actually find people to travel and all that stuff. But we're trying to work on ways to continue our relationship with those people and expand on other Montana nonprofit associations. So that's, again, that just goes along with our communication and trying to get more partnerships out there. And I want to bring up GIS days coming up, November 20th, I believe. Yep, November 20th. So keep that in mind. It's 2 months away, but it, you know, the way things have been going lately, it's going to be next week, basically. So it's going to come by quick. So yeah, we got plans again to do some kind of ArcGIS online, like mapping contest or something. We did the power lines last year, and that seemed to work out pretty well. And we had it in several cities throughout Montana. Thought that turned out really well. We're probably going to do something similar to that, and we're going to be working on that and getting some notification out soon on that. And any other meetups or whatever, we'll be more than willing to support if that's what people want to do. And I think that basically covers most of it. So,
Mike, thanks.
yep.
Questions for Mike? Comments or feedback?
Well,
Okay.
thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. You have linked in your meeting materials a link to our fourth quarter financial report for the MGIA account. At your last meeting, Melissa Briggs was able to be with us to talk about the revenue situation. And I've asked Melissa to be with us again today to give you an update on where we ended FY24, and then it's very early in the new fiscal year, but kind of what she's looking at as the revenue begins for this fiscal year. So Melissa, thanks for being with us. And it looks like you're still muted.
You would think 4 years after the pandemic, but here we are. Hi everyone. I have just a little bit of information that I can share with you. As you guys know, we only have 2 full months available of revenue information for this fiscal year. So it's not enough information to really see a trend yet, but the information. That's funny. I like that, Adam. Sorry, I just note. So with the 2 months that we do have, information on, the revenue is flat compared to last year. So that's good information to me, because that makes me believe that we are sort of at the bottom of this curve. And hopefully this is where the pendulum starts to swing back the other way. Based on information that's coming from the feds and the trend of inflation recently, which is continuing to decrease, it's likely that there will be a decrease in the federal rates soon. Mortgage rates are continuing to go down. So these are all good signs that revenue will rebound. You never know. It's an election year. So when there's uncertainty, the markets do crazy things because the markets really like certainty. So I can't say anything with certainty, but that all the signs are looking good and the trends are looking good, for us to see at least flat revenue from last year, which we can sustain because we have a budget that will support flat revenue for this year. But hopefully we will see increasing revenue over the year and be able to build back up some cash in that account. One thing to think about, and one of the things I've been reading about, is the possibility that we get back to a place where interest rates and mortgage rates are as low as they were during the pandemic. It is unlikely anytime soon. And so people are still going to want to hold on to the low rates and the pricing that they got on houses at the time. So it's just something to think about, we're not going to return to any kind of lush time like we had during the pandemic, but that things will come back to a new normal, that will be a much better place for us to survive on these funds. So that's really all that I wanted to say to you all today. And by the next time I can talk with you, there'll be much more information, and hopefully I can share bigger revenue numbers.
I think one of the key takeaways that is in my mind, especially as we think about the upcoming kind of a 3-year planning horizon, is we really haven't had a chance to understand what sort of quote unquote normal revenue looks like, even coming out of the 2021 session when the fee was increased. That was right in the midst of the pandemic and the crazy housing climate that we were in here in Montana. And now we've seen some very, very significant declines. So in terms of projecting and an ability to plan, I think our horizon for understanding what normal looks like is a very, very long horizon. And so in my mind, we need to be very conservative as we're thinking about our 3-year plan and the funding that we have to accomplish that work. Yeah, Maureen, thanks for noting we have some labeling updates that we still need to do. Thanks for catching that. Any questions for Melissa? Right. Melissa, thanks for being with us. Erin, I'll let you proceed with the GIS coordination report.
Right. Okay. All right. So I want to talk to you, about just kind of give you an update on some of the outreach activities that we have either conducted or will be conducting. And so this kind of starts this time of year, right when school starts, also our very busy season for getting out and meeting with our partners at their annual events. And so here are some of the things that we are in the works for attending or have attended. So the ESRI Annual User Conference, I was able to attend along with Melissa Briggs this past July, and that was really great. I was able to coordinate a meetup of all the RGCs under the BIA. So the basically the United States is carved up into regions, and each of those regions are assigned what's called a regional geospatial advisor. And kind of like a geospatial coordinator role for that specific region. And they are tasked with interacting with all the federally defined tribes in that area. And so the RGCs are more of a newer position in the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and many of them had not met their counterparts and with state government, the GIOs. So there was a meetup one evening, and I think all the RGCs were there. There's still one that's vacant, and they were able to meet. I think we had a pretty good showing of state GIOs and coordinators there, and so it was really awesome to facilitate that on behalf of NSGIC, and then just some of the work that I do for the Western States Caucus, which is a part of NSGIC, and then my role as a tribal liaison within NSGIC. And it wouldn't have gotten done without the energy of KR Bixby, who is our RGC for Montana. And so he and I work together. Actually, we have two RGCs, Caroline Ruwak. She represents parts of Washington, Idaho, Alaska, and the Flathead tribe, so that the region, I can share you that map later. And then KR represents tribes in Montana and Wyoming, and I do believe both Dakotas. And so they have very large ground to cover, and obviously a lot of intricacies of working with so many different tribal nations. And so it was very successful. So when I attend one of these conferences, I'm not just going to sessions, I'm actually doing a lot of coordination and outreach with our national or regional or federal or tribal partners. And so that was really awesome to see. And it was just kind of a great step forward into improving coordination with tribes, not only for Montana state government, but then basically setting a good precedent for state coordination across the U.S. So that was really awesome to see. And then we also met with ESRI to kind of give them our perspective about how things are going with software development, and were able to kind of take our concerns and some of the major things that we're working on and needed to relay. And it's a good way for us to keep that conversation going with ESRI and some of the impacts of their technology on state government. So we had a lot of really great conversations with some of the higher ups, and including Jack Dangerman, who owns ESRI. And so it was a really good opportunity for the states to interact with those folks. I attended the GIS Managers Summit for the very first time, and I thought it was excellent. And so I would highly recommend any GIS manager. It's not just targeted for state government. It's just basically a GIS manager conference. It was held the Sunday before the conference began. Conference begins on Monday. So I think that I would highly recommend it if you have the ability to attend and then go the day early for some of those summits. It was a fantastic use of my time. And so I think I might even got wrapped into presenting next year. So we'll see. But I was able to meet with some of these partners that I think would really benefit local government on some of these out-of-the-box technologies and workflows that Esri is building. So not buying anything new, just a different way to implement the information. So we've worked with some of their product teams. I'm not calling their teams the correct team name right now, so I apologize. But we've worked with some of their teams. They're building a product for grants. Again, based on the COTS tools. So we kind of walk through how we manage our grant program, and we're able to give them one-on-one feedback. And then we've also just seen some really great project tracking resources, and how to visualize your day-to-day activities and make sure things aren't falling through the cracks. We're using ServiceNow to filter and to track a lot of the work that we are doing, but I could see how we could implement some of their resources that they've created, and then also for those entities that might not be using ServiceNow and take a lot of requests. I think that I just saw a really cool tool. So I want to basically take and get MAGIP, especially this local government SIG, to I guess coordinate and facilitate a meetup of those groups, so that then other folks can hear about this. It was a really awesome activity. Okay, so then we also attended the Montana Clerk and Recorders and Election Administrators Conference that was out in Eastern Montana. We have been working in partnership with them for several years now, so it's good to meet with them at their annual conference. This year we sent Michael Fashaway. He had not been able to attend the full conference. We had a couple other folks that were slated to go, but unfortunately sickness got in the way. So Michael was able to attend and represent and answer questions and give a presentation on everything that we've got going on, and just basically maintain those relationships. It's a really good way for us to be able to sit down and answer some of those questions from the election administrators that are doing this day-to-day work in the system. And so it was a good conference. I am going to head to Missoula on Sunday for the MACO, the Montana Association of Counties, and pretty excited about that conference. So I will be there. I'll be having a booth and then attending sessions, and then just working with our counties commissioners, answering questions, and any other elected officials that do attend that conference. And then next week, we've got a couple folks headed to Butte for the fall 911 conference. That's APCO and NENA sponsored conference. If anyone has specific questions about that, Michael's attending, so I'll just kind of wait till the end. I'll be headed to San Antonio the following week to attend the National States Geographic Information Council's annual conference. That's in San Antonio. Some of the bigger topics that are coming out is basically continuing discussion for the NSDI and the implementation and potential edits to the Geospatial Data Act. There is a national geospatial strategic plan that's going to be published. So I get to have one-on-one time with some of those folks that are responsible for creating those national documents that eventually will make their way to states to edit and or implement some of the best practices or standards. And then it's just a great conference to stay apprised of new technology and new trends, and then just meet with my counterparts to work on national standards. There's a lot of discussion coming out of the user conference with cadastral and some of those data sets that have been put out by Esri and other private entities, and basically are duplicating some of the efforts that we do. They don't have a common update schedule, so it's a risk to some of the users of cadastral data, especially if they don't know of some of the products that we're already putting out. So I've been working with the cadastral subgroup of NSGIC to try to address some of these products that are being released, so that we can either directly contribute rather than having them harvest once a year, maybe directly contribute annually, or not annually, depending upon the product. The cadastral we'd want to contribute monthly, just so we don't see an out of sync and perpetuating bad information or old information. So that's probably one of the bigger conversations that we're constantly having when it comes to coordination, is not duplicating efforts and then not perpetuating old data. And I can give more of an update on that at the next meeting, when we kind of have some action items of what NISTIC will be doing. We have, there is a Marl's fall meeting, and unfortunately, again, some personal things have come up. We were gonna have Jeff Hedstrom go, but he's unable to attend now. And it is I think it's the 27th, that's Friday. It's here in Helena in September, and I'm going to attempt to come, but I'll be coming back from San Antonio, so I'm not sure if I'm going to make it. I do believe perhaps some other state folks might be going. And so there is a fall meeting, and they're basically starting to set their legislative agenda. So we are trying to attend, but we'll see. But for those of you that might be interested, there is a fall meeting coming up. And if you want more information, I can send it to you. And then, of course, League of Cities and Towns is the first week of October. We actually are slated to present. So we've got an hour presentation on Friday, where Matt Trebish and I will be attending to talk about, high level coordination activities, the cost of not coordinating geospatial activities, and then how to use the services that we put out. And like I said, it's a busy month, or busy couple months. Following League of Cities and Towns is the Association of Planners. Again, we're going to be teaching a workshop on how to use our services for specific planning workflows. I think it's like a 4-hour workshop that Matt Trebish, Garrett Wycall will be supporting the presentation and training. And then I do believe Kenny Kettner is going to be doing a presentation on the new cadastral. We've got a few staff, including Troy Blandford, headed to Whitefish to attend the American Water Resources Association conference. That's the same week as the Planners Conference, I do believe. And if I didn't say it already, it's in Whitefish. I do believe he's conducting a presentation as well, but definitely having a booth, and again, just working with folks to so they better understand the resources that we have available, how they can contribute, and hopefully getting more interest in the LE Hydro program, and prioritizing projects with the feds on that. And then we have the Natural Heritage Program Partners meeting in I think it's the same week as Planners, the 3rd week of October or the 2nd week of October. So we'll be giving our typical updates that we give on some of the important MSDI data layers that are key to our heritage program partners. And then we just are continuing to support state government in the ESRI Enterprise Agreement contract work. And we have a state planning meeting scheduled for the week of Columbus Day. I think that's, oh gosh, the 17th, 16th. Yeah, it starts the 17th of October. So again, a lot going on. That's basically covering us for the next couple months, and we'll have more information on how we are how we're achieving our coordination goals. I'm basically only highlighting some of the major events. That doesn't, I guess, preclude some of the other activities that we do, in coordination with some of these events, if we have the ability to stop by a partner's office and see them while we are in town, visiting one of these, for example, going to see folks at City of Missoula or Missoula County next week while I am there, and so on and so forth. So yeah, so that's some of the outreach activities. Any questions before I'm just going to give a very brief update because we are still working through it, but okay. I know a lot of you, especially in local government, rely upon the master purchase agreement, and the negotiations are in progress. It's pretty much all I have to report, other than there's several iterations back and forth between the attorneys at ITSD and procurement and Esri. And so there might be a slowdown because one of the folks that works on this is has got a new job. And so he will be transitioning that to other folks on his team, and it could slow things down further. And so I know that's that the local governments have been waiting for that to get implemented as quickly as possible. So if you have specific questions, you can reach out to me, and I can put you into contact with those folks. It currently exists as a workflow that ITSD, the MPA, does work on, and there's some discussions potentially just moving it to state procurement that just is under Department of Administration. So because it involves so many local governments that purchase off of that, so it's more of general nature. So there is some discussion about potentially moving it. And we are in the process of the negotiations for our Esri Enterprise Agreement, which all state agencies can interact with and purchase their software products from. And so not much to report there, other than we are in the negotiations process. So I think that is all that I wanted to report today. Are there any questions?
Aaron, do you know if Karen Rogers from the BLM is going to go with you to San Antonio?
Yep, she will be there.
Okay, yeah, she's been doing a good job of trying to keep all of us abreast of NISJIC stuff.
Mhm.
I'm happy to get involved for Montana as well, you know, maybe at some point here, but yeah, for BLM, she's a good conduit to get information out to all of us, and she's done a good job of that. I don't know if there's much interest from the other states, but you know, she at least keeps us well informed.
Yeah, she also is on the Western States Caucus, and so with that connection, is able to continue to interact with the Western states. So I think, you know, the Western states have the biggest interest in the work of the BLM. So yeah, and Karen, for those of you that may not have known, she was the former GIO for the state of Wyoming and president of NISJIC. So she is very much, I guess, has a lot of history and understanding of the organization. And I think it's a great position for her to be in to help further state coordination from the federal perspective.
Other questions, comments, feedback for Aaron? As you can see, staff are very, very busy over the next 6 to 8 weeks with a lot of outreach opportunities, and hopefully we'll get to see some of you and your colleagues and counterparts at those events.
I guess I should say one thing, that the other reason why I was there at the conference, we have a hard time with tooting our own horn, but we did win a SAG award. So I was there to basically accept the SAG award, and I can drop the link in here, but we hadn't won one in quite some time. And so it was an honor to be able to accept that on behalf of all the awesome people here at the Montana State Library. And of course, you know, got my photo with Jack, and it was awesome to have Melissa Briggs with us and her mom, who also knows GIS and works for a planning organization in Kansas, I believe. Right, Melissa? Is she on? Oh, she's
Yep.
on.
Yep,
Okay.
that's right.
Yeah. So
Okay. Are there any other business or announcements?
is there
Any
anything
other business?
RTN related we wanted to? Did wanna? No, okay.
Any other business? Any public comment? Any public comment? All right. Our next business meeting, regularly scheduled business meeting, will be November 14th. So we look forward to seeing you at that meeting. And then you should have work meetings on your calendar over the next several weeks as we continue to flesh out the details of the geospatial information plan. So look forward to connecting with you at those meetings as well. With that, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.